Hello everybody, I am Ross, the GeneaVlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to How Irish is JACKSEPTICEYE DNA Test Ancestry by JACKSEPTICEYE. Now, I have not really watched a lot of his videos. Obviously, I'm familiar with him. If you're on YouTube, it's kind of hard not to be. I know he's Irish, so it's going to be kind of that typical guess of anyone who's from, Ireland or England or Scotland or anything like that. We're going to probably see some sort of mix of British Isles. Like, I'm sure he's going to get Irish. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets some other British Isles. Will not be surprised to see Scandinavian. Wouldn't be surprised to see any sort of Northwestern European outside of the British Isles. So, like if there's anything pointing towards maybe like the Netherlands or Denmark, although I don't think either of those actually have population group definitions in the tests. Wouldn't be surprised to see French or German, any sort of European really, but you just never know what might actually be hiding in there, so we'll just have to see. But before we do jump into the video, please be sure to give this a thumbs up. It really does help me out. Also, be sure to subscribe and click that bell for notifications on future videos. But with that fun stuff said, let's go ahead and watch the video.
Top of the morning to you, ladies. My name is JACKSEPTICEYE, and you ready to travel back in time to figure out where did Jack actually come from? What's his ethnicity? What's he actually made up of? Well, look no further than the Ancestry DNA kit. So this is a kit that you spit into a tube. I know, delicious. And then you send it off for analysis, and then they send you back something 6 to 8 weeks later. It's going to take forever. I'm going to be a completely different person by the time this video ends. And then they send you back like the makeup of who you are. So I don't know how in-depth it gets. I don't know how far back it goes. I don't know if it tells me who my great ancestors were or anything like that. All I know is that it will tell me how Irish I really am. And I've always said that I'm 100% Irish because I don't think that there's any sort of diversity in my family tree. I don't know where we actually came from. I don't know anything like that. And I've always been jealous of the people. There used to be TV shows where you'd see people go off and find their ethnicities and who they were related to. And there's always people who were like, oh, I didn't know that I was half Cherokee kind of thing or something like that. I don't know. So I want to see if I actually am.
So I'm guessing he doesn't have a family tree. If that's the case, I wonder if he's probably, I imagine he may be one of these people who, and this is very common for a lot of people who don't have an interest in genealogy. He probably knows his grandparents, probably doesn't know much at all about his great-grandparents. I could be wrong, but, a lot of times when I hear from people saying stories like this where they'll, he's like, I really don't know much about what my family came, if I were to say, well, what were your grandparents' names? Do you know that? Or, he might know like some of his grandmother's maiden names. Maybe he knows a couple of great-grandparents' names, but more than likely my guess is he probably would be surprised to learn that. So, that's the kind of stuff that genealogists like myself really love to dig into and show people because, it often isn't that hard to find that kind of stuff depending on where you are.
I'm as Irish as I think I am because my parents are fully Irish, my grandparents are fully Irish. For all I know is that my entire bloodline is 100% Irish, but I'm curious to see if I have anything else in me, maybe some British or something, I don't know. So probably. I want to figure out how this works. Should we start spitting? Do I know you well enough for this? Do I know you well enough to start spitting into this? So I have to fill it to this, you can't see it. I have to fill it to this teeny tiny black line, which is a lot. That's a lot of fucking spit. Okay, here we go.
Spit take time.
I just realized how gross this actually is.
Probably gonna skip this in the edit.
Okay, I think I did it. Right, so then remove the funnel, and then I have to twist this thing on until it pops, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did the blue solution come out? I don't know. Shake the tube for at least 5 seconds. This will ensure your sample mixes thoroughly with your stabilizing solution so our lab can best process your sample. Okay. Man, science is crazy. It's all in there, but now it went past the black line because the solution filled up. Is that allowed? assuming that's allowed. I did exactly what you told me to do. Right. And then we place it in the collection bag. It's in the bag. My little tube is in here. And then we just put it into this box. And then we send it off. And then I have to wait a long time. You guys have the power of editing to help you just transition to the next part. But I have to wait a very long time. So the results are in, apparently. Okay, so with the magic of editing, it's been very, very quick for you guys. But for me, it's been like 4 weeks. So a lot has changed. Do I look older? Have I aged? I think so. So it says great news.
So I actually just noticed this, and I figured I'd point it out because I always mention it at some point in the video. This was this aired July 7th, 2017. So almost 4 years ago at this point. So not even likely. It is for certain that these results have updated since then. I doubt that he's done any sort of update video on it. I'll look into that. But my guess is whatever we're going to see, it's probably changed a good bit since then.
Your Ancestry DNA results are in. The moment you've been waiting for is here. The Ancestry DNA results are ready for Sean McLaughlin. See my results. Get the most out of your Ancestry DNA results. Review your DNA matches. Link your family tree. Now, I didn't do a family tree for the DNA or for the...
But will he look at his DNA matches? Maybe.
Ancestry stuff, because I don't know enough information about my family to, like, I'd have to go looking for it. I'd have to go ask my parents about certain information to go do it, and I haven't gotten around to that, so we won't get that far, but we can see my results. Oh! Thousands of years ago, ethnicity estimate. I'm 6...
Oh, this is back when Ancestry had DNA circles. So over there on the right, it used to be DNA circles. Now it's, gosh, why can't I think of, no, theory of relativity. That's from MyHeritage. Through lines, that's what it's called on Ancestry now. There's so many different tools to try to keep up with. But it's kind of funny seeing the different, like, it's very similar to how it is now, but it's very different this page on Ancestry.
62% Irish, and I'm 34% Great Britain. Oh, no! So I'm not 100% Irish. I mean, oh, that's weird. 4% other regions. Where the hell the rest of my family come from? Oh, please, 4% Japan. Oh, that would be so cool. I could live out my ninja ancestry. So 62% Irish. So I'm majority Irish. That's something that was pretty obvious.
And that mix of Irish and Great Britain is not necessarily that, you know, he is exactly 62% Irish and 34% Great Britain. It's just that's how Ancestry's defined it based on the studies they have. But a big part of that could just be that because there is a big population migration between Ireland and Great Britain over, you know, hundreds of years and thousands of years, that there's a lot of shared genetics between them. So distinguishing them genetically, not so straightforward. So that's probably a big part of it. And it's for those same reasons that I wouldn't be surprised if that 4% other regions came from like Scandinavia or something, because population migration between Scandinavia and the British Isles. But let's continue.
Anyway, but 34% British. View your genetic ancestry. Can I click into this and get more info? Whoa, we can! 3 ethnicity regions. Shows where your ancestors came from hundreds of years ago. And 2 genetic communities. Shows where your ancestors probably lived in the past few hundred years. Oh. 62% Irish. Primarily located in Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. Now, this is going to be a thing, I imagine, for a lot of Irish people. Especially a lot of Irish people who are my age who are doing this kind of thing. Hundreds of years ago, I'd say the percentage of just straight Irish would have been much higher. But the fact that, like, years and years and years and years ago, the British invaded Ireland, and there's a lot of conflict, and there was a lot of stuff that happened, and that's why we have Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and lots of historical stuff going on there. So it would make sense that there's some of the British gene pool filtered in there. So, like, that does not surprise me at all. And England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, we share a lot of very, very similar stuff. Scottish people and Irish people share a lot of very similar things as well. Yep. And technically Northern Ireland is part of the UK. So, yeah, so there's a lot of, like, intricacies in there, in the middle of it.
He's spot on. That's exactly the way to interpret these, is that there is a lot of, there's a lot of circulation between all these different population groups and the history behind everything, that it's a lot of, it's a lot more complex than just saying, Ireland, Great Britain, Scotland as these separate genetic places, when in reality, the people that live there all share a variety of genetic ancestry.
At all. So I figured that I figured it wasn't going to be 100% Irish anyway, because the world is a very broad place now. People are very well capable and able to travel all around the world these days. So it would...
And people traveled a lot more than most would expect back in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, and even earlier. It really, it wasn't necessarily the most common thing, but it wasn't that uncommon to travel places.
It would make sense that there's a lot of different nationalities and different ethnicities all filtering throughout society and humanity these days, which I think is fantastic. There's a lot of diversity in the world these days. Right, okay, let's click into this. 3 ethnicity regions. So yeah, 62% Irish and 34% Great Britain. Low confidence region. The Iberian Peninsula. Okay, what?
4%.
I'm part Spanish. I'm part Portuguese. Yes. Oh, ¿cómo estás?
Now, with the 4%, this could be something true. Now, often this would be called a trace result, which I feel causes a lot of confusion for some reason, because a lot of people just connotate trace result meaning not true. And that's not the way it is. And I kind of like how it is here. Ancestry says low confidence region. And that's basically what it is. When you hear trace result, think low confidence region. Because just because it's trace doesn't mean it's not true. It just means that there's a low confidence that it is true. But there is still a possibility. And this is the part where, since this was filmed in 2017, since the update, has it gone up? Has the 4% disappeared? Has the Irish and British changed at all? But most of all, if that Iberian is still there or even stronger, could be could be telling that he does have a ancestor of Spanish and Portuguese ancestry. So if it's 4%, that would be, you get about 50% DNA from your parents, 25% from your grandparents, 12.5% from your great grandparents, and then, half of that and so on. So at 4%, that could be coming from an ancestor who was fully Spanish or Portuguese, who could be a second great grandparent or a third great grandparent to JACKSEPTICEYE. That wouldn't be too difficult to find genealogically if that's the case. Now, obviously, that's assuming that it is correct, the Iberian, and that it's coming from one common recent ancestor as opposed to multiple distant ancestors, where instead of it being, a second great-grandparent, that it's actually, fourth great-grandparent on one side, fifth great-grandparent on the other side, and then it just equates to this larger amount. But, at 4% and him being from Ireland, it could be possible to find that. It very well could be. But yeah, it just takes some genealogy research.
That's cool though. I'm fascinated by this stuff. So my ethnicity isn't that diverse. I mean, I'm 62% Irish, so the majority of me is Irish.
He's like a Western European mutt in a sense. Although everybody's a mutt if you think about it. We're all just big mixes for the most part. Even if you do one of these tests and you get 100% of something, you go back, couple hundred years, or not even couple, but if you go back hundreds of years, go back even further, you will find diversity in your ancestry. There's no question about it. It's just a matter of how far back does it go before you start getting a lot more of that diversity.
Which I guess was to be expected. 2 genetic communities. What does that mean? Genetic communities show where your family probably lived in the past few hundred years. We create these by identifying groups of ancestry DNA members who are genetically connected to each other. As science improved and our DNA database grows, the communities you've connected to might change.
So what that's saying is that they're looking at all of the DNA matches that he has, looking at the ancestral areas that they have in the family tree. So earlier he talked about, oh, I could build a family tree and connect my profile to it, but I haven't done that yet. For those who have done it, they've put the towns and places that their ancestors lived, and these are the areas where Ancestry's algorithm is finding that commonality, and that's how they're coming up with these groups. So basically, he's getting a whole lot of people who are genetic matches where the town of their ancestors are in this area, Ulster, and then he's getting a whole bunch of other people who are also getting Southern England. So that's where that's coming from.
Okay, so this stuff might not be completely accurate because there might not have been a lot of McLaughlins who shared the same genetic traits and the same gene pool and DNA sequencing, whatever, as me that might have done this, and then other people who have done it. So we don't have 100% accuracy on the people who have done this. So
yeah, that's true.
Ulster Irish. In the late 1700s, the population of Ulster was growing. Land was scarce and rents were high. Many immigrated to America, joining relatives in Pennsylvania and the Carolinas for an easier life. As poverty and unemployment continued throughout the 1800s, others left for Canada to work in construction and the lumber trade. Crop failures motivated even more people to flee to cities like Belfast or across the Irish Sea to Britain, looking for food and work. Thousands more joined established Irish communities in Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, building canals and railroads. Yeah, so a long time ago, Irish people immigrated like in vast quantities. That's why there's so many people in America who have Irish ancestors, or you always meet. Every time I go to America, I always meet people and they're like, oh yeah, my family's from Ireland. They're from Cork. They're from Galway. They're from Dublin. Like, where are you from? It's like, Offaly. I lived in Westmeath. And like, yeah, I don't know where that is. I'm like, of course you don't. Why do people keep asking me this?
I wonder if he looked at his genetic matches, would he find a lot of cousins who are living in America? And even more so, would he find a lot of cousins living in America where he can figure out their common ancestry? Which, you know, a lot of people in America, the Americans taking this test, that's what I think a lot of them really want, is to be able to connect with their relatives outside of America. I know it was, for me, the first time that I connected with my non-American relatives, I think the first ones I connected to were either in Australia or New Zealand, and I remember it just felt so cool, like, I have blood relatives living in this completely other part of the world I've never been to, and it's just so cool to be able to connect with that. So, you know, I feel like that's what a lot of people that take the Ancestry test and are doing genealogy from an American standpoint, and I imagine possibly Canadian too, being that it's a very similar, you know, history. You know, Canada is all immigrants other than any sort of Native Americans there, same as US. So, but I do see that there's like a little bit over 4 minutes left of the video, so maybe he'll go into genetic matches. Maybe. He's looking at a lot of stuff that most people don't look into.
We went over there and we worked hard, and then we drank harder. So that kind of does it for my results. There wasn't a whole lot in it.
But look at the matches.
Literally all I wanted to know was this.
Now, the matches, it says 117 fourth cousins or closer, so I wonder if that's all he got, and maybe he didn't get anything. Or wait, fourth cousins or closer. Okay, for some reason I was thinking at first fourth cousins or more distant, because that's usually how it'll do it. When it shows you your actual genetic match. Maybe he'll go into it. Please.
This graph. I wanted to know how much Irish I actually was. I wanted to know how much British I actually was. I did heavily suspect that there would be some British elements in there. A lot of British people and Irish people who will do these will probably get the same results, or similar, that there's Irish and British in you, because there was a lot of back and forth a long time ago. So it would make sense that my generation had a lot of that genetic ancestry and ethnicity in conjunction with that. So that's pretty cool. That's what I wanted to know. Now, I did do another one. I recorded another thing called 23andMe. that was another one I found after I looked up this one, because I just wanted to do these. I've wanted to do these for a really long time. I remember watching some TV shows of celebrities going back and getting their ancestry, and I wanted to see what my ancestry was. Now, I would know more if I knew more about, like, my grandparents. I know very, very little about. Like, both my granddads were dead when I was born. One of my grandmothers died when I was like 12, I think. And then my other grandmother died a few years ago when I was like in my early 20s. So I don't know my grandparents hugely. So I don't know, like, I don't have enough information to start a family tree. And if I did, maybe then we could like join back and see where people came from. But
just with knowing your grandparents, it's still enough to build the base of the family tree. And then from there, that's where the ancestry hints and all of that come in. But you'd have to be an ancestry member to get that, which not everybody wants to pay for that kind of thing or do the work that's required to build the tree. But that's where professional genealogists come in, which I no longer take public clients, but for Jacksepticeye, if you do contact me and you want me to build your family tree, and we'll do a whole video about it, just like those shows you used to watch, which is probably Who Do You Think You Are? That's my guess, because that's huge in the UK, and even Ireland, I think, had their own version of it for a couple of seasons. But I will do your genealogy, Jacksepticeye, and we'll look into your family history, and we'll find out more about your grandparents and their parents and further back, and maybe we'll even find out where that where that Iberian is coming from.
I think this is good enough, but the other one that I did, the 23andMe one, I don't know how long it takes for that to come, so I literally posted it away yesterday as of recording this video, so I could get that back in a week. This one took 4 weeks, but I did hear that 23andMe is faster. But the reason I did that one was not only to try and corroborate some of this and to see if that matched, but I also want to see traits. So the 23andMe one will give back traits on how, like, my addictive genes and how prone I am to certain diseases and Alzheimer's and things like that. So I'm really fascinated by that. I want to learn more about me. But also, these things are not like 100% fact, I don't think, because you'd have to go.
That's a pretty good estimate, except the way to think about it is that they're a scientifically based estimate. So they're not 100%. There is a margin of error, but there is some veracity to it. Like, it's not just like completely, pulled out of thin air.
Go and get a lot more information. You're sending away a saliva sample in the mail, and it took a while for stuff to get done. But it's done. It's done. I'm 34% British, 62% Irish. That's probably going to surprise a lot of people. To me, personally, didn't surprise me all that much. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, punch that like button in the face. Like a boss. And high fives all around. Whoosh, whoosh. Thank you guys. Now we'll see all you do.
All right. Well, that was a pretty good video. Basically what I expected for the most part. It seems Jacksepticeye was expecting that as well. Seems the Iberian threw him off just a little bit. Not too surprising for me. Anyone in Europe, it's kind of not surprising if you get a little bit of some other part of Europe. But, it would be cool to build out that tree, see if that Iberian is coming from an ancestor that he could trace. And that would probably be a really interesting history as well. Because, we're looking at, if it's 4%, we're looking at about a second great-grandparent to a third great-grandparent. And I'm pretty sure Jacksepticeye is right around my age, born late 80s, early 90s. I was born in 1987. So, with a second great-grandparent, you'd probably be looking at somebody born between maybe, I'd want to say 1850, 1875, third great-grandparent, maybe, a little bit further, 1800 to 1850 or something, can vary on how big, how fast generations go. But basically, second, third great-grandparent, we'd be looking at someone who was born and lived mostly in the 1800s. And who knows, maybe we could actually find a connection in the tree showing a family member coming from London or somewhere else in southern England. It's certainly possible. So, Jacksepticeye, if you are watching this and you want a professional genealogist to look into your family ancestry for you and build a family tree, hit me up. I'm totally down. We'll do a video about it. Well, thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out when you do that. Also, be sure to click right about here if you'd like to subscribe. It is completely free to do so. And you can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at GeneaVlogger. I'm the GeneaVlogger. See you in my next video.